right, as I mentioned, the Biden administration announced yesterday a hostage exchange agreement with Iran that includes the release of $6 billion to a regime that has long been classified as a state sponsor of terrorism. In addition to the tone-deaf nature of announcing such a deal on the anniversary of September the 11th terrorist attacks, the transaction drew criticism for how it will enable the Iranian government to continue sponsoring terrorism while feeding its appetite to continue hostage taking. Even today, in fact, it may still be going on. In the House, there were debates over bills to impose sanctions on Iran's missile and drone programs, as well as Iran's leadership over their human rights abuses. I mean, is this not putting the U.S. at risk of being seen as schizophrenic? Joining me now to discuss this and more, retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, who serves as FRC's Executive Vice President. General Boykin spent the last 4 years of his 36-year military career serving as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. He was one of the original members of the U.S. Army's Delta Force. General, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Just get your initial reaction, learning of this deal, again, being announced on the 22nd anniversary of 9/11 that we're giving $6 billion to a terrorist regime.
Yeah, what we're doing is we are essentially paying our enemies because they are probably in the top three, obviously, of those who want to destroy America. They've been at this for a long time, and all you need to do is think back to 1980 when they took 52 Americans and held them for 444 days before they finally released them. But when did they release them?
Yeah, when Ronald Reagan was taking office.
On Inauguration Day. That's
leadership.
The missing component in the situation.
I mean, and obviously this is personal to you because you were a part of the rescue mission that didn't succeed out in the desert after the aircraft crashed.
That's correct.
So I want to be clear on this. The $6 billion, this was assets, Iranian assets that came from oil sales that had been frozen. So this was not U.S. money, but it's money that's been frozen, that's been released to them. But this is Obama back in 2016 gave them, I think it was $1.7 billion. This is 3 times the amount that was given to them back then. I mean, now they're saying it's all for humanitarian purposes. Do you really believe they're going to use this for humanitarian purposes?
No, they are not saying, because you got to include the president of Iran as part of the they, and he has said just the opposite. He made it very clear today. And he said, we're going to spend this the way we want to, basically.
Yeah, I actually have a quote. It has not aired yet. This will be later tonight on NBC, but this is what he said. Humanitarian means, this is President Raisi, he said, humanitarian means whatever the Iranian people need. So this money will be budgeted for those needs, and the needs of the Iranian people will be decided and determined by the Iranian government.
Now, I want to just make sure everybody remembers, this is the same regime that killed 15,000 of their own people for rioting in the streets before Soleimani was killed. And so their needs, does anybody believe that they really care about the needs of the Iranian people? They want a nuclear program that will put them on par with the rest of the nuclear community. I mean,
this is actually part of the debate that was going on the House floor today. And by the way, there were some Democrats that are supportive of sanctions on Iran because of their human rights abuses. Right. So this raises the question, General, why is the Biden administration pursuing such a relationship with Iran? I mean, you can't say it just so they could see 5 Americans released. There's got to be more to this equation.
Tony, I can't give you an answer to that. I thought that I understood a little bit, at least, about this administration, but now I am totally confused because there is no logic to this, none. Look at what happened when he came back into the Iran deal, the JCPOA.
Right.
How far did that go? How well did that turn out? They're still in negotiations. That whole thing is falling apart. So now he jumps into this exchange that is going to give them $6 billion, and somebody would have to explain to me, what do we get out of this other than getting our people back. And then the question is, what price are we willing to pay for this kind of thing?
Well, Donald Trump, under the Trump administration, they brought many Americans back home. In fact, I went and retrieved one, Andrew Brunson.
Yep.
We didn't give money. That administration didn't give money. It was actually, as you talked about with Ronald Reagan, it was the threat of force. It was power. It was the intimidation factor of leadership.
Right.
What are you concerned most when you look at this transaction? What are you concerned this would lead to?
I'm concerned about two things. First of all, that they will use this to enhance their long-range missile capabilities as well as their warhead development. And the second thing is that they will, right now, Al-Qaeda has a rather large presence in Iran, and I think that we have to keep our eyes on Al-Qaeda because they're still there and they're still out to do us harm. And I think they'll get some of this money just like a few years ago, they funneled a lot of money into South Lebanon to where they had a Al-Qaeda presence in an area that threatened the Israelis as well. So I'm concerned about those things most of all.
So how much damage can you do with $6 billion?
I'm not a nuclear scientist, but I can tell you, in that part of the world especially, they can do a lot.
Does this not also, General Boykin, incentivize hostage-taking?
That is absolutely no question about it. That said, hostages are going to be taken no matter what we do, because even though during the Trump period we got a lot of hostages back, we've got hostages now, and that really is a result of the weak leadership that America has, and we have demonstrated to the entire world, and we did it again. I mean, our president did it again. He got over there in Vietnam where he was center stage and told everybody he was going to bed. That's the most powerful man in the world. That's the guy that people expect to have answers. It's humiliating.
The administration says, well, we're not paying for hostages to be released. But the effect is the same. It was, as I pointed out, it was Iranian assets that had been frozen because of sanctions that the U.S. helped lead, but they had to go to Qatar to actually release this money because even European banks wouldn't do it because they didn't want to get caught up in this bad deal.
Admiral Kirby, the press secretary for the Department of Defense, when he finally leaves the administration, there's going to be a fight among the liberal news outlets to see who gets him because he's perfect. He can look right into the camera and keep saying the same lie over and over and over, knowing it's a lie, and people are forced to watch that kind of nonsense. That guy is dangerous.
Final question for you. We're up against a break, but any immediate reactions from, what are we going to see come from this? Anything immediate?
I don't think immediately, but in time it will. It certainly will, and we're going to see it. We're going to see that happen. What I'm more concerned about is Kim Jong Un visiting Putin, and I think that's a bigger threat right now than this.
Well, in reports of Putin's health, are those legitimate?
I don't know. I've read all that stuff, but I really don't know. But his ability, or Kim Jong Un's ability to put some very lethal material in his hands, is a real threat.